Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and start because I believe in people's time is important. So I want to thank you for coming to You've Got Your 501(c)(3). Now what? I'm sure more people are going to be coming in as we start, but I'm one of those people that like to start on time. This is an informational webinar. One of the things I've been doing this for years, and this concept came to me because so many people have the same questions or they get their 501, even if they don't even start, once they get their 501(c)(3, they don't have a clue what the next steps are. So the assumption is that you have your 501(c)(3, but I will talk about what it means to have a nonprofit in the first place and what does that mean legally, compliance, and all that other stuff. And of course, if you have any questions, please ask them. And at the end, because you did come to the webinar, I'm offering a free 15-minute consultation, and I'll give you the link to that calendar as well. So I wouldn't be a good educator if I didn't tell you what my expectations of the course objectives are. Um, Basically, it's just to identify the challenges that new nonprofits face. Beyond Existing Enterprises, my firm, I work mostly with small grassroots organizations and faith-based groups. They're typically smaller, they're having issues with funding, they need to get visibility, and to learn how to get community engagement. And how to overcome those obstacles are crucial if you're going to be successful. Number two, I wrote this class and I've taught it before, the class that I'm going to be mentioning, but now that I've really honed in on it, there's five essential areas for nonprofit success. And if you don't understand the nonprofit sector, and if you don't accomplish and prioritize these five pillars, as I call them, or key areas, you're going to have issues in navigating your nonprofit to be compliant and successful. And then I'm going to talk about the course I wrote that support this journey. But I want to make sure everybody understands what these five key areas are and how important it is that you know what it is. So in the chat, I need a one word from all of you that describes how you feel about currently running a nonprofit or running your nonprofit that you have right now. What's one word that you think of? You can go, you don't have to say it out loud. You can say it in the chat. Can everybody hear me? Oh, blessed. Oh, that's nice. Okay. I got blessed, nervous. Okay. Cautious. Okay. Excited. Cool. Okay. So we got the gamut here on the spectrum. So what I hope to do is help. I'm glad April feels blessed. She's been through with me before. I will calm down the nervousness. I think nervousness is overcome with information. Cautious, I will tell you how to navigate this journey, and excited because it is exciting. If you're in the mission based, I don't call them nonprofits. I call them mission based organizations. Being mission based is exciting because we're changing our communities and our worlds. And that's really important. And that's what's really exciting about the nonprofit sector. So, why are you bothering to listen to me? My name is Dr. Arletta Caldwell. I've had about 35 years in the nonprofit sector. I've worked in every capacity from volunteer to board member to executive director, program manager, et cetera, et cetera. I've done it for free. I've done it for pay. I've seen it all. I've seen the big ones. I've seen the small ones. So I come at this to help people overcome those learning curves and those pitfalls and really help people understand the nonprofit sector. And the reason I focus on small and grassroots organizations and faith-based, because that's where a lot of the work comes from, and that's where a lot of people are volunteering. So I want them to be able to overcome those pitfalls. One of the reasons I went for my PhD in specializing in nonprofit management. I have my doctorate in public policy and administration, specializing in nonprofit management. One of the key reasons I did that was because I wanted to make sure that I was keeping abreast of all of the trends and changes and making sure that the information I provide you is research based. I hear what a lot of people say about what it means to run a nonprofit, and yes, I clutch my pearls. And so I want to make sure that the people I'm working with, I always say, I'm not just giving you information, I'm providing you with answers. I'm committed to the community. I grew up as a church girl. I've been doing this for years. When I say 35 years, I would say that's professionally. I have been doing this nonprofit church work, as you can say, since I was 15. So I'm committed to communities. And I want to show you how to get founders. There are so many misconceptions about the founders of a nonprofit. I want to show you, give you that support, help you understand what it means to be a nonprofit founder is different from being a for-profit founder, and to help you get tools and insights, again, for clarity, sustainability, and compliance. So why BEE? Again, my Beyond Existing Enterprises, I call it BEE, is really basically because my goal is to make sure that the organizations that work with me have the tools, the resources, the insight, and the information, and more than information, the answers that you need. So, I'll tell you who I wrote this course and this webinar for: new nonprofit founders, corporate professionals transitioning from, they're typically retiring and they're going into the nonprofit space. They're going to start a nonprofit or they're going to be working for a nonprofit. Again, like I said, I was a church girl, faith-based organizations and community leaders. And then those who are just uncertain about 501(c)(3) operations. I had a call a couple of months ago where a potential client said, the attorney did my paperwork, but I don't know if I'm legal.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And at first I was taken aback, but then I said, oh my God, stop. And then I was able to look it up and explain. I had another situation with a client where I was reinstating their nonprofit. And then, as we're going through the paperwork, they said, so exactly what did we just do? And I don't want that for anybody who's working for me. I want them to understand what I've done, what we're doing, what you're supposed to learn, so that, again, that sustainability piece. Not that I'm never, once I teach you, I'm out the door, but that you have a clear understanding of what's going on. So here this is where the rubber meets the road. Here are some common pitfalls that new founders have. The first one, like I said, you are changing your community, but passion isn't enough. You are now a nonprofit corporation. Once you get that state paperwork back, you're a nonprofit corporation. Let me go back. I did say I would explain this. This is the process when you're starting a nonprofit. To be a nonprofit, you have to be incorporated by the state, one of the states. And when you get that incorporation paper from the state, you're officially a nonprofit corporation. You have to have a board. No one can own a nonprofit. It's ran by a board. In Michigan, it's a minimum of 3 people. And then if you want to be tax exempt, that's that 501c3 we talk about. You have to go to the IRS on the federal level. They make sure that you can be considered what they consider a charity. And you fill out the 1023 form and you get the 501c3 number and they send you that paperwork. And now you're tax exempt from federal income taxes. Not all taxes, federal income taxes. So those are the two ways. You can actually be a nonprofit corporation without going through the tax exemption, but that's for a different class. But that's basically what you are. You are a nonprofit corporation. You cannot be an LLC. You cannot own nonprofits privately. You have to be incorporated by the state as a nonprofit corporation. In doing so, most people that pursue going into being a nonprofit, they have the passion. And that's why I love this sector. Like I said, we're changing our communities, we're changing our worlds, but passion isn't enough. A lot of people think I got my 501c3, I'm on my way, I'm going to give me some free grant money, or people just going to give me money, and they don't have a plan. No one should go into business without a business plan. And don't mistake the 501c3 designation as your readiness to run operations. It's key too that you define your mission. We are mission-based organizations. We use the term nonprofit, but again, I prefer mission-based because everything you do in the nonprofit emanates from your mission. As a matter of fact, whatever you tell the IRS and your state that you're doing, that is what is you're incorporated to do, and that's what the tax exemption is for. So quickly, for instance, if you say you're going to help boys and you get an opportunity to help girls, but you told the IRS that you're helping boys, if you decide to help girls, that is not tax exempt. And it's beyond your nonprofit corporate status because everything emanates from the mission. And April can tell you because she's been through my class. I'm always talking about everything emanates from the mission. So you need to build an operational frame. You have to have, even before you get your incorporation, you should have your bylaws, you should have a budget. You're going to need it for the IRS, for the 501c3 paperwork. You should be all set up. Your bylaws are how you run. You got to have a budget. And you need to be able to understand finances. And then here's this mind shift thing you're going to have to work with. We're going to, the one biggest thing is shifting your mindset. You're looking at impact versus income. Yes, you do need money to make that impact, but your focus is on making impact. Looking at what your mission says and how you're going to impact it and put it in that out in the world. That is how you're supposed to think. And I can tell you, I've worked with a lot of nonprofits. That's not what they're thinking about. So if you have a nonprofit right now, here's another chat I need to know. Do you have bylaws or have you or you defined your board yet for those who have a nonprofit? Okay. I got one yes. Cool. Yes. Cool. Okay. Yes. So one thing you're gonna need too, I'm good, this is good to know. Not only you need your board, your bylaws, you also need a conflict of interest statement because we don't supposed to personally enrich ourselves from our nonprofit. It's not saying that you can't get paid, but you have to show that you have to have a conflict of interest statement as well. And you typically, when you're applying for the 501c3, the IRS is going to ask you for a copy of that. And you should be looking at your bylaws, and your conflict of interest should be signed every year. Are there any questions? Okay, I'm going to move ahead then. So here's the key, what I call the key steps you need to launch a nonprofit and run it effectively. And it's just more than filing a 501c3. So it's mission clarity. That's the first, filing with the, filing with the IRS is the first step. Once you do that, you're fine. Now you got these two pieces of paper. You're going to have your articles of incorporation. You're going to have your tax exemption status. So then the second thing, and this is what everybody seems to skip over. Now, I just mentioned that your mission, everything emanates from your mission. Do you and everybody on the board and all your stakeholders understand your mission? It should be clear, it should be specific, it should go beyond stating your cause. You need to state your mission, your vision, and your guidelines, your principles very clearly that everybody who's involved can articulate it. It's an overlooked step, but I know of an organization right now that is floundering because they never figured out their mission, or everybody else had what they thought was the mission. And if you're not clear about that, the steps you take, the money you ask for, has a way of getting muddled. The example I use is if you had an organization that's mission was to eradicate childhood obesity. And one of their guiding principles was, no, we shouldn't drink pops because pops is one of the number one reasons why we have childhood obesity. So then one day, a large beverage company comes to you and say, we want to give you $500,000 because we believe in your cause. So the question is, as a board, do you accept that money from that pop company that your guiding principle says is the number one destroyer and the reason why kids have obesity? I will tell you, it is not illegal to take that money. I will also say it may not even be unethical, but based upon your mission and your guiding principles and your vision, you will have to make that decision. And if everybody is not on board of what your mission, your vision, and your guiding principles are, then you're going to have problems when you're talking about that grant. And everybody's going to be coming from all over the place. Another key, you have to understand your state requirements. Every state is different. When I set up nonprofits for people, I have to ask for the state because I have to incorporate from the state. In the state of Michigan, it's $20. I think in California, it's $275. In Pennsylvania, you have to file, you have to get an ad in one of the legal newspapers to say that you're starting a nonprofit. So each state is different. And each state has requirements. In Michigan, we have to file the nonprofit permit every year. In September, we have to refile for $20. If you don't do it, they'll revoke your nonprofit corporation status. So you have to know for every state. Another thing, you have to establish a solid infrastructure, your board operations, your programs, your compliance. There's nothing worse to me than somebody coming to me and ask me for a grant, to write a grant for a program that doesn't exist. Once you learn about the grant process, you'll understand that really what you're doing is aligning your programs or your mission up against the funder, and you're explaining to them why they should fund it and why it aligns with what they fund. But if you don't have a program and you're just out there taking money, that's when issues come in and challenges. And bottom line, remembering a nonprofit, again, is a business. We're a nonprofit corporation. You have to start thinking like a small business owner. The board does. You also have, they always talk about the double lot, bottom line. You have to be as savvy financially, but you have to worry about your impact. And then you have to be stewardship because no one owns a nonprofit. So you're just doing stewardship of the money. So you have more obligations because you're doing this on behalf of society. So you have to be even more than a business person and you have to think about it. I happen to run an LLC. If I get profit, I can spend it any way I want. In a nonprofit, that is not allowed. There's certain things you can do with that money. So this is what I call the 5 pillars of nonprofit success. Again, that mission and guiding principles. Your mission should clearly define who you serve, why you exist, and how your values guide decisions and priorities. If you don't have this clear, I'm telling you the roadmap is going to be a struggle. Even to the point that if you're not clear up front, if you change extraordinarily, you have to go back to the state and the FBI and the IRS to tell them, hey, our mission has changed. So you want to get this, you want to be as specific and broad as possible when you're indicating what the mission is. Because again, what you're telling the state and the IRS is what actually is the tax exempt and what makes you a nonprofit corporation. Secondly, marketing and messaging. Effective messages connect your mission to the right audience, building trust, visibility, support through consistent communication. One of the keys of being a nonprofit, according to the IRS, that you have to have public support. So your marketing and message has to be effective because that's where most of your support comes from. No matter where you get your support from, your message should be clear. This is what we're about. Because, and it should be clear too, because everybody should be able to pitch the organization, particularly the board members. Fundraising. We receive most of our dollars. Again, 70% of our funding should be from public support, according to the IRS. Fundraising requires a strategic blend of relationship building, diversified revenue streams, and a compelling case for support. It is more than just grants. I do a workshop on grants and I tell people grants is a leg and a stool. You have to have, we got 50 years of research to show most of your money, 70%, should be coming from individuals. And individuals will keep you going through good times and bad times. But that's the part we neglect, our stakeholders. Then you can get corporate dollars, and then there's grant, foundations. But you have to understand fundraising fundamentals, come up with a fundraising strategy that's diverse, and pull in all the pillars so that you can say sustainable. The fourth key pillar is compliance and legal oversight. Staying compliant means understanding and fulfilling your federal, your state, and your local legal responsibilities to protect your organization and its assets. I can't tell you how many people have lost their tax exemption because they don't take the 15 minutes in May to fill out their 990N. That's our tax form. Or people lose, and I've been in a situation where an organization lost its corporation status because in the state of Michigan, they didn't file the permit for 3 years. And I just saved 2 organizations recently from that. It is, and then making sure that your money, that you're not raising money and it's becoming your core business. Or understanding, did you fill out your charitable solicitation papers on an annual basis? Does your grant writer have are they licensed? Those are the kind of things you have to understand for compliance and legal oversight. And then your last part, because like I said, beyond existing works with smaller organizations and church organizations. So volunteer and people management. The only difference between staff and a volunteer in the nonprofit sector is volunteers don't get paid and staff can't volunteer. All the labor laws that apply to employees apply in the nonprofit sector. And if you don't manage your volunteers and they're under your umbrella, you can come up with a lot of liability if that's not handled correctly. So it's very, very important that you understand the laws and how they relate to volunteer and people management. So in the chat, here's your next question. Which of these 5 pillars do you feel the least confident about? Let me see if I can. Compliance, okay? Okay. Volunteer, okay. Is anybody here at the point where they have staff? Okay, I don't think anybody has staff because that's important too. Because again, a lot of people think one of the things that got me in business with the compliant my consulting business was because there was a lot of people out there who thought they didn't have to pay payroll taxes because they're a nonprofit. Okay, I had to change the organization's name with the IRS. Oh yeah, okay. So yeah, these are the things you have to understand before you do it. And compliance, I can say, well, I don't know on the current administration, but I have been able to in the past get on the phone with the IRS, and they do provide answers. And if you go to irs.gov on the charities, you can find out a lot of information there as well. And then, blow my own horn. You can ask me. So, I'm coming in here hesitantly, but these are key differences for success. So if you're coming from the corporate world or the for-profit world, this may sting a bit, but I want you to stay with me. Your corporate skills are valuable, but they're not a shortcut. In fact, some of them may hold you back in the nonprofit context. I have seen it over and over and over again. I actually have heard this in a board meeting. I remember having a conversation about a strategic plan, and one of the board members, and I was saying, you guys need to go get a nonprofit consultant. And someone blurted out, we're corporate people. We've seen a strategic plan. And then they went ahead and did a strategic plan, and they never even talked to their stakeholders. So you have to understand that being in corporate America, your corporation has the infrastructure under them. I had a situation where I was moving offices and having to explain to the board that I don't have a facilities department. I am the facilities department and my 2 poor overworked program people. And we're going to do the best we can. And our finance um, guy actually helped us move most of our stuff. So you have to understand you don't have all that infrastructure that you have in corporate America. But it's even more than that. In corporate America, we're used to metrics, performance reviews, defined job roles. In a startup nonprofit, everyone's doing everything. And success looks more like trust built over time than quarterly returns on investments. Also, corporate governance and nonprofit governance are not the same. Like I said, in corporations, first of all, a lot of you are going to be doing this as volunteers. Secondly, corporate nonprofit governance is about stewardship of the assets on behalf of society. So that is why we have so many layers and why the government is looking at it, because you don't supposed to be getting enriched from the nonprofit for your personal needs, but you're supposed to be doing it on behalf of society. Another shift that people don't understand is in nonprofits, the board has the legal authority, not the CEO. And that's a huge shift. And I've had several conversations where people say, well, I found this and this is my concept and blah, 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 blah. But as a nonprofit corporation, again, no one owns it. And if your board overrides you, outvotes you, or as the executive director says no, that's the way it goes. So you're going to have to unlearn command and control leadership, embrace influence, storytelling, and collaboration. That is the thing about the nonprofit executive and the board. Everything's going to take the decision of a lot of people. And you have to make a lot of people understand. And that's why when they did the strategic plan and never talked to their stakeholders, I knew it was dead in the water because you didn't ask the people who support the organization. So here's my question for the chat. What's one business habit or mindset you've had to reframe since entering the nonprofit world? Or what's one thing you think you're going to have to change? Or what misconception do you think you're going to have to overcome now that you know what it takes to run a nonprofit? I know that's a pretty deep question. Knowing that I was the only one who's knowing that I was the only one whose opinion mattered. Right. Now you got to think of the opinions of everybody. Anyone else? Understanding that the founder doesn't own the nonprofit. And I can tell you, I've had conversations, long conversations. One of my first clients was because the founders told the board that they didn't have to do what they said. Thanks, Darlene. Making sure I include all the board for decision making. Oh, yeah, that's another thing too. I have a very hard time convincing boards that everybody has one vote and they're equal. The board president's vote doesn't mean more than the director. It's one vote. And then it said, bringing my corporate mindset to the Ministry of Confusion as they have been terribly unorganized. Yeah, you can use some of the traits and some of the infrastructure of a corporation, but understand that you're putting into a nonprofit sector and it's a complete animal, a different animal. Another thing, the nonprofits we're not the step cousins of corporations. I can tell you I spent just as much money on my PhD than my for-profit brethren. Also, I have run nonprofit organizations with millions of dollars in the budget. It takes more finesse, and like you said, all hands on deck than my for-profit brethren. You don't have the infrastructure. Sometimes you don't have the staff with the expertise, and you're working with a lot less resources. So in this mindset shift, you want impact versus income. You want to measure success by mission fulfillment, not profit margins. Everything emanates from the mission. In nonprofits, the goal isn't financial gain. It's not to have financials because you're supposed to have reserves, but it's not the goal. It's solving a problem and meeting a need in the community. Resources serve a purpose, not shareholders. Every dollar raised should be tied to impact, not return on investment. Stewardship replaces profit as the driving force. Decisions prioritize people and outcomes over efficiency. Unlike for-profits, nonprofits often choose what's most just or effective, even if it's not the most cost efficient. That's the beauty of the nonprofit sector. We invest in things that are not the most efficient because we're changing lives and communities. And then sustainability depends on the mission alignment. Growth in a nonprofit is only meaningful when it advances the mission, not just expand programs or funding. So I brought up a lot. Are there any questions? No questions?
I have thoughts. I wouldn't necessarily say it was a question. I'm struggling with, like you were just saying a few minutes ago, I've worked in nonprofits with a brand as corporate because the folks came, that's where they came from. So they transferred that over. But then now that I'm working in with churches, they're driving me bonkers because they're so poorly ran, they're so poorly organized, and they are, but somehow they figured out how to get a 501c3 though. But I just don't think that they're, keeping up with, all like the complaint, like the things you were talking about in terms of making sure, they're doing the yearly forms and, all of that. I just, because they're so poorly disorganized.
Yeah, and they don't know. The thing
Right.
is, you may have to bring somebody in, and I'll give you my pitch. But
Mhm.
once you find out, like, you just have to be that person that comes in with the paperwork. Because I don't get on boards without asking, where's the bylaws?
Mhm.
Where's my conflict of interest?
Mhm.
How much do I supposed to be paying? Because, as a board member, you should be financially helping the organization and fundraising. Where's your strategic plan? If a nonprofit does not have a strategic plan, I can promise you they're not going to make it. They should be able to say, we're in the third year of our 5-year plan. If they don't have one, then that should be the next order of business. Because when you go through that strategic plan process, you've clarified your mission, vision, and guidelines and all the stuff, like those 5 pillars,
Mhm.
and then they put into an action plan. And if you do a strategic plan correctly, it brings all the stakeholders and everybody together so you understand what everybody's coming from. So that so you come in, where's the, articles of incorporation, bylaws, and really, where's the strategic plan?
Okay.
So to get ready, of course, I am, this is my business. So I'm offering a class starting June 24th. It's 7 weeks. Some of you have been through it. I've updated it and I've based it on these pillars. It's called Launch Your Nonprofit Mission Driven Success in 7 weeks. Because what we do is we go through all those pillars in detail. There was no way I can do all this in an hour. And then at the end, you come up with a 1 page. I call it a mini strategic plan because there's no way you can do it in 1 page, but it does give you a blueprint of what to do next. So we're going to have live weekly sessions. They'll be recorded, and you'll have access to the recordings. In this class, I've upgraded, so there's going to be templates and tools, and I have, of course, if you have a question, I'm not going to say I can't answer that question. So you have guidance. So the tuition, and in addition, I offer a 1 hour consultation, with each individual regarding your organization to help you for the next steps. So the tuition is $19.99. It's a value 2,500. Like I said, I'm taking 35 years of experience and I've put it into this class. And what I'm trying to do is once you take this class, you have a true understanding of the next steps. Because you at this webinar, I'm for this course, the one to start on the 24th, I'm charging $14.99, and I do have payment plans available. So, what I promise you is you'll leave with a structure, confidence, and a working plan, and not just theory. It is really important to me because even before people come to me for consultation, they ask for me for grants and whatever. I'm finding that everybody needs this foundation, and you should be able to take the next steps once you take this course. So if you're interested, I'm enrolling starting tonight, actually, and I'll be sending you the replay, and I can see the information about the class. Also, because you attended this webinar, I'm offering, like I said, I offer 15 minutes of consultation if you have any questions or if you have any questions about the class. I'm sorry, I can't see something. Somebody just left. Okay. Here's the link for the consultation if you want to talk about that. And here is the course registration. So I want to thank everybody for coming. Before you leave, are there any questions? Do anybody, or if not, can you put in the chat which takeaway helped you the most from this webinar? No takeaways or questions? Oh, creating principles that align with the mission. Oh, you're welcome, Robin. Okay, with that, I want to thank everybody. Let me stop sharing. Thank everybody for attending. If you have any questions, please contact me. Don't let the cost of the course scare you. I know how that is. I will work with you. But April's taking my class. She can tell you. I can get you on the road to figuring out what you need to do. And please avail yourself. If you click on that link, it'll go to my calendar. And I say 15 minutes, but most people know it'll be over 15 minutes. And if you're listening to the recording, everything that I'm offering is the same for you. So I want to thank everybody. Is everybody sure they don't have any questions? Any more questions? Okay, with that, then I'll say good night and thank you so much. Thank you for your support. Good night.
Night.
Okay.